Welcome to the LeaderImpact podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world, dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. The best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. And if you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is John Schick. John grew up in Gillette, Wyoming, surrounded by an unbelievable support network. He attended Utah State University, where he graduated with his Bachelor in exercise science. He signed with the Houston Texans and went on to a 12-year professional football career in both the NFL and CFL with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Hamilton Tiger Cats, and the Edmonton Eskimos. He is a two-time Grey Cup champion, a three-time All-Star, three-time nominee for the CFL's Most Outstanding Defensive Player. His more cherished accomplishments during his football career was in the way he was able to serve the communities he lived as a national advocate for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, a condition in which he proudly has conquered daily since the age of 14. In 2018, John stepped away from his football to provide a more stable life for his amazing wife, Catherine, and their 10 children. He started two businesses, Iron Will Fitness and Kickin' It Co-ed, and has recently became a director of prison ministry. He loves to work out, play board games, and pick up basketball. And I heard he submitted a video for the Titan Games because of his belief in himself, his family, and Jesus Christ. Please welcome to the Leader Impact podcast, John Schick. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, great to be here. Great introduction. Okay, Thank you.
We have so much to talk about. Number one is 10 children, but we'll get there. But first off, the Titan Games. How did this go? How did this submission go?
I don't even know if anyone ever saw it. Honestly, it was a brother-in-law when I retired. Said, "Hey, you should do this," and I was like, "Well, I'm still in a competitive time in my career and had a story. I just don't think it was the story that they were wanting to push, to be honest with you." So either way, it was fun. I had a great workout, great filming, but no, I never heard back on anything. So,
and from this, when I read your bio, I looked it up. I'm like, this screams John. It really is it's exciting. All right. Well, again, yeah, thank you. And we're going to talk about those 10 children later, but
yes,
because that's amazing. But my first question for you, and we just want to jump on this because I have so much to ask you.
Yes.
You are the definition of health, and your life is aligned around faith, fitness, and the father of 10 children. You are clearly competitive, and I read you have a deep desire to overachieve. As a child, you had a lot of health challenges, and I know we talked about juvenile diabetes, but can you share a little bit more of that journey and how it shaped you growing up?
Yeah. As far as I knew, I had a normal childhood and all was good. But looking back, and especially looking at my kids who really are that picture of health in my mind, how blessed we've been there. I was a sickly kid. I was scrawny. I was very competitive. I was an athlete and all that stuff, but I always had allergies. I was a bedwetter. I had, you name it, I had broken bones, all this kind of stuff. And then culminated with diabetes at 14. And it just, as a kid who, I was very naive in my belief or that faith like a child that we read about in scriptures is I had it. I was just blessed. I was in a very faithful home and I was told I could do this when I was X years old. And I believed it, whether that was to be an astronaut, a football player, or what have you. And so those were all passions and things that I really thought and talked often about with my family that, hey, I'm going to do this. And then when you get hit with life and some of these things, missing a season, with an injury and diabetes, as you start kind of taking things for granted, living on Mountain Dew and and whatever. As a kid, it's like, wow, I can't now take my health for granted. And I have all these dreams and aspirations, and for them to be accomplished, I have to double, triple down on, I guess, my resolve to do that. And honestly, I had an army of support through my school, coaches, my family, uh, reaffirming in me that you can go do all these things, but it's going to be hard work. And I believed it. And it was hard. A lot of times that you, why me? And you want to give up. But it also at the same time was, man, that against the world mentality. And I'm going to go and conquer this. And, as Christians, I think we kind of have that anyways. And so that was my faith background, and I wasn't going to be stopped. And thanks be to God, I was, able to start achieving some goals and dreams as I'm approaching the end of high school, my time at home and going into the real world. So it a lot of blessings. And again, when you look back, it was all blessing. I don't have bad memories or woe is me. But when I look at my kids' daily life and interactions, and especially with 10 as compared to, my closest brother was 6 years apart. We had a sister in between, different dynamic. And, as an athlete, you become isolated. As a Christian, you can become isolated, and I found that often.
I feel like when I hear the story of, you were young and you had to get into some pretty healthy habits right away. And I mean, between health and exercise and to sort of live with diabetes. And I've read some other conditions that you had that started early for you. That habit, that forming, that belief that I don't do this, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And again, it wasn't ingrained in me. My parents knew what they knew. Best parents, you could ever ask for in a million years. But as far as knowing what nutrients should be and all these kind of things, that's just not how I was necessarily raised. But I had everything I ever needed, and I was blessed in that love, and that overcomes every obstacle. And with that, I had some great coaches and mentors that said, as I'm sharing my dreams and goals, you can do this. But along with my primary care physicians, managing my diabetes we shouldn't probably be handling lows with Mountain Dew and animal crackers. We need to find the optimal nutrition for not only to help manage your blood sugars, but for peak performance.
Yeah, I think we all need to find our optimal nutrition.
Yeah.
Put away the Coke. So after high school, you then went and played for Utah State. Now, yes. I went to college in Wyoming, so not very far from where you lived. I was in college, and awesome. All my friends that came from Utah, I believe they were all Mormons. So you were raised Catholic, and now you're at a school, a majority of them are Mormons. I'm just wondering if you can share your experience there.
Yeah. If you read A Tale of Two Cities, there's a Catholic and Mormon version of that title. Interesting book, not exactly my partake. It was the best experience for me for lack of a better term, because this isn't to put anyone else down, but as an ignorant Christian. I was raised in the faith, and I had a faith like a child, but I didn't know it. I couldn't defend it. I didn't know the apologetics as well as a person of faith should. And when you get to a school like Utah State, where half of your football club is 2 years older than you because they've come back from missions, they went and served the Lord and their time, and you're on in a community where there's a Mormon church on every corner. Sunday, the town shuts down and everyone's carrying their Bible, walking to church. And the only Catholic presence when I went to school there was the Newman Center, which could only hold 300 people. That was the congregation in that town. And outside of those two worlds, most people who weren't either of those, again, there were other small churches, but it was somewhat a rebellion, a college atmosphere, of children who are rebelling against the faith, and so you understand that. But it really was an incredible time for me in my faith because I had to know the answers. My dad was a very devout and was raised in Catholic school. He knew every answer, and I could always go to him. But now I'm not in my house, and I couldn't defend it right away. I knew the faith that I had, and so that was a great experience, learning, discovering the whys to my faith. And I met my wife, who was raised Mormon, born and raised, and we started going to church together every Sunday, and we fell in love with the faith together. As it is in most couples' cases, my wife is the saint of the group, and she was always a better Catholic, even though she wasn't of that denomination. She loved the Lord, served the Lord with her whole heart, and has a heart bigger than you could ever imagine. And so I continued to learn things about my faith from her. But that experience, as isolating as it was, because it was on a football team, again, of Mormons or rebellion, or again, the small congregation, I knew very few Catholics, even there and in through my professional career. And, wherever you stand in faith, it is it represents Christianity in a way that it does receive the most persecution in a lot of ways. And so you kind of feel that at times, that isolation, and but it made me who I was in my faith.
Yeah, I married a saint as well. And I'm very, very blessed.
Yes.
Ours was the Catholic girl married the Mennonite boy.
Okay.
Now we're practicing Baptists.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can all do it.
Right.
So you had a professional career in football. And I'm just wondering if you can talk about, in your bio, we talk a little bit about after football. So I want to know about the transition between pro football and then, owning these two companies. And now, you just let me know that you have a bigger role in ministry. So how is that transition? How was that on you? Or what was it like?
People try to prepare you for it, and there really is none. There are many who transition right into coaching, and I had that opportunity. When I was done, I was done. I was a little burnt on the political side. I just read the other day, Phil Jackson hasn't watched basketball since 2020 because of the politics. It's not because I don't love football. It's because some of the pureness of football has been lost to some of these things. And that's kind of where I was at that point in my career, is I was ready for another level of impact and serving my faith. Growing up in a devout home that I did, my dad, as a family, we served a soup kitchen at least once a month. He was very involved in youth ministry and just ministry. And as a football player, you get to have a lot of impact. One, on the field. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just football." Yeah, but it's something that gathers a lot of people, and there's something very special about it. But outside of football, the impact that you get to have as that representative of a club that represents an area, to go out and serve a community, was unbelievable. And it's way more unbelievable experience for the players than I'm sure it is those that are excited to meet their favorite players and all that kind of stuff. That was just unbelievable. That being said, it's not the same as a ministry. It is a type of ministry, but it's not full-time. And especially as football players, we're so transient, bouncing around. It's not consistent all the time. I loved it, and I missed it. So the transition was, and is, I think, for at least 90% of those that don't go right into coaching and so on, very difficult, extremely difficult. And part of that reason is, at least for me as an athlete and as a football player, everything you do is with your end in mind. As a Christian, it is anyway. Yeah, we're trying to reach the prize. But as an athlete, You have a definitive goal, and that's the championship. And that's your pursuit from the day that championship ended one year to the next. It is preparing yourself to make the club, to stay on the club, to make an impact on the team, on the field. And the whole reason for all of it is so that you can win that trophy. And the impact of it, Leader Impact, I love that name because it's all about impact. And I don't know what the true statistics are. I just know my own head and ADD is, I would say most football players and most athletes are already against the norm. Is maybe they didn't fit in an X, Y, or Z, and they could put all of their energy and effort into this. And this is what their passion was and allowed them to maintain some level of focus on something that could keep their attention. And I know that was at least my case. And so with that, being goal-driven, every day you have a task. I mean, throughout a football week, it's so regimented. You have a day one, a day two is different, a day three is different. Then you have your walkthrough. Then you have the day before, with and then it's game day. And so you are preparing for that 48, 24 hours to get your body as fully recovered so that you can go win this week's prize and put your best performance out there. And it is so detail oriented. I've heard people do talks on Michael Phelps' warm-up routine or Michael Jordan's, Tiger Woods, these guys' warm-up routine, Kobe Bryant. It was the exact same from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, every week. And then they would twist one thing or something if that week was off. So detail-oriented. And then you're out of sports and you're going into, if you're going into the regular job, a career. Well, it's not necessarily definitive. Yeah, there's production. Yeah, we have this expectation, but you don't hear about it every day. It's not emphasized. You're not pumped up all day, every day to reach this goal. And so whether you're doing that for someone else or like I did, I said, I'm going to go work for myself for a period of time. And now you have to be the be all and end all for what is that goal? What does that day 1, 2, 3 and look like throughout the whole week? And the greatest thing about that as an athlete is the impact. There's a lot of fun in football without all the fans, without all the impact. But the greatest blessing from sports and or any type of, well, I will say sports, I'll speak for sports, is you do get to have such an imprint on a community and impact. And so that is a blessing. And then also what you miss so much right out the gate. And now you got to replace income, and now you got to replace the camaraderie with your, with an entire team that you weren't doing this alone. You depended on everyone else to be doing their job so that you could do that. And so for anyone to ever tell you it's easy, I'd like to talk to them because it's different. There's something you just miss about that. It is the perfect storm, and duplicating it is difficult. But I do have that mindset, as you mentioned, to do it. I believe it's possible, and I believe that this game of life that we're on, this game of ministry we're on, is like it. And so I can get into the other, but I'll stop for a second to see if you had any other question on that. And
well, I think of when we talk about transition, and I know I've talked to a lot of people in the podcast and friends who, we talked about the C-suite is leaving. There was an exit of CEOs and presidents, and you wonder where they transition to. Yes. And was it as busy and was it as fulfilling? And I'm 53. Had a conversation with my brother who's 63, and he retired, and he just in his transition, you have to retire to something. You have to go to something, because I have a lot of life left, and what is that transition? But you have purpose, and we have to fulfill, we have purpose in life, and there's a big picture out there and a big goal.
Absolutely.
To get. So
that's
yeah.
One of my just favorite terms I use: purpose driven. What is that? How am I making an impact today? And in sports, as a football player, it's clear, what that is today, in the confines of, hey, the bigger picture. As a believer, what is the end in mind? And so when I retired, started two of my own businesses. One of those is Iron Will Fitness, become Iron Willed, and was doing a lot of men's programs, very Christ-centered, body, mind, and spirit. In the world, and I noticed it so much in football, is we had a lot of people that, said Jesus, but lived a different way. And we're all guilty of that to some extent. And then we say, hey, okay, we can go worship an hour a week, but then we go back to our other self. And, I believe when you look at those first apostles and the life of the church and the saints was, no, this is it. This isn't Christ is just part of my life, and all these other things are part of my life, but Christ is here. And he goes with me into my marriage and into my work and into all those things. And so I was creating programs and working with a lot of men and women to even in football say, no, we get to do this to glorify God. And how much you can glorify him on this platform or that. And I was running a sports league and doing some of those. And honestly, it was very fulfilling, but also time demanding. And as an aged athlete, also a lot of sweat equity involved, and I love grinding. I've done that my whole life. But my wife had got us into something that blessed both of our companies in health and wellness and supplementation. And it started freeing up some time, which is something I think is very important, because we always put the prize here and it demands so much of our time that we don't get to do the things, or we don't do the things that our faith asks of us. And I felt that in the first year I had an opportunity to go volunteer for a Kairos prison retreat, and I couldn't give my yes because my time was too struck. And fortunately, with this opportunity and freeing up some time, I finally got to say yes. And I started as a volunteer, and I've heard it many times and I believed it, but I didn't know how it worked in my life. But God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And everything that I had been working toward and become Iron Willed and these programs, all of a sudden, the director of prison ministry was stepping down. And I just felt overwhelmed by the Holy Spirit saying, well, you better throw your name in there. And again, other deacons and that apply, but one by one, it came down and they offered me the position. It's like, holy cow, director of prison ministry. And I just could not be more blessed by the opportunity to serve the Lord. And not idolizing, but iconizing my father, who was a great example of serving and loving our neighbor. Just been blessed and really to get to go visit Jesus in prison. So it's been awesome.
You are an overachiever. You just keep going.
I think my wife always jokes, no brain, no pain. That's the same with the kiddos. Hey man, it's been knocked out of you so many times. You just one thing and it's going. And so it's not overachieving, but it's to whom much is given, much is required.
That's good. All right. So I wanted to ask you a question just about when, as a former professional athlete, I'm sure there was a lot of things you did daily to sort of show that you were a Christian. I'm sure that you were in a locker room and you had to make decisions, or you were going out with the boys and you had to make decisions. And I'm just wondering about those daily things that you, as an athlete or a faith-based business owner, what are those, if there's a few things that you do daily to sort of say, this is who I am?
Right.
Yeah.
I always saw myself as, one, I'm a sinner. And so that's never putting myself on a pedestal. I was definitely blessed with faith. I grew up in sin, and it's been constant evolving and coming into a fuller light, I guess, more say. That being said, Jesus was accused many times of his best friends being sinners and tax collectors, and that's who my best friends always were. And I love them to death. And most of them are better people than I was. And thanks be to God, you pray for them so many times over the years, and so many of those guys have since had children and are in happy marriages and happy careers. And don't exactly know where they're at in their faith, but I know through marriage and children, you have a lot better opportunity to come to know God and the love of the Father. And so just been blessed. I got sidetracked a little bit, but
things you do daily.
Question. Yes.
Yeah,
the daily routine in football. I mean, you'd have a lot of dialogue. It's a very colorful locker room. You got people of all walks of life and hardened, and they know who the Christians are, and they know how to get your gears. And so great conversation. I'm talking high school, college. You can imagine, those discussions from people of very devout in a different faith. So it would lead to a lot of great discussion among peers. Other ways that you live it is in service. So you join most teams had some sort of a way to practice their faith, and a chaplain would come, and we were very blessed by amazing chaplains over the years, and so you get to practice a faith together in that way. And we would go do things like visit people in the hospital and find ways to serve the community together as a band of brothers, and so that was a blessing. And then that's a great opportunity to invite other people to the works, because we can always talk, and talking goes so far, but when people experience Jesus in service, that is the greatest blessing. So I feel my earpieces just died. Did they? Did my voice change?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. And so, those ways. Yeah. One clear difference was I was a young man coming into my very first team with the Texans. My wife is 5 years older than me and in love with the Lord, and we were having children already. So I'm starting my career with children, where most other people having kids were near retirement in football years. And so that kind of separates you. You're not on the same level. You're living for your wife and your kiddos, and most people are living to go out and have a good time or meet that significant other, whatever it might be, but living a faster life. And so it was a natural separator, but it was very respected, a lot of admiration both ways. And so those are, I guess the biggest differentiators. Your daily routine is, if you don't keep Christ in it and you are a believer, you're going to lose your mind, because you will be divided. And so you have to find ways in a hardened locker room, in a hardened career, to keep Christ there. And so for me, along with my own walk in sin, it was the weekly, daily practice of the faith, and that's getting up in prayer hour. That was my wife and I. 2008 was an injury-filled season for me with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I fell in love with a particular Bible study and teacher, and had an opportunity to do that. And from 2008 on, with every club we were on, my wife and I would host Bible studies with our teammates and their families, and so that was an unbelievable blessing, because you made brothers in just studying Jesus together and the Word together, and so that was incredible. Regardless of where we were playing, is found a way to get to Mass, and that wasn't a boast. That's not a check to be marked. It was an absolute blessing to get to go find a church in Edmonton and Montreal and all these different places, go worship while you're playing, while everyone else is going out and finding the the club. Is I'd kind of go do my own thing and go see some old churches and cathedrals, and that was awesome. And I'd invite some brothers to Mass every once in a while, and if you had any walk in the Catholic Church, it's a little different than Baptist for sure, and how they worship, and so I didn't always get a lot of second and third time comers, but it was always an opportunity to share the faith, and it was a blessing.
That's good. Yeah, I think it would be tough, and it's funny because you talk about your friends, and I think you're a friend of Luke Mullender.
Yes.
And I have a meeting with him on Wednesday.
Yes.
So I'm going to say, I was talking to John.
He is one of my closest friends, and great man. And at the same time, he was the one, we were like brothers. He'd give me the hardest time. And my rookie year, it was him and Tim Fleiser, who ended up becoming my agent, who were the hardest on me and tried to make my rookie year miserable. So
it's got to be someone.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the spiritual side. I mean, we're LeaderImpact. We sort of transitioned to that. But you've sort of been talking about your faith journey throughout this whole podcast. And when I've seen interviews with you, and I watched a few more on other people, I would consider you sort of that outspoken Christian athlete. You are not afraid to say, I thank the Lord for my, and I've watched interviews where interviews are cut off. Athletes have been cut off and said, oh, I lost them because they went on about their faith. And so what is your, were you ever challenged as an outspoken Christian athlete? Was it like, yeah, John, there's the football player John and there's the Christian John, separate them? What was your experience what was your journey through that? Or did you experience it?
Yes and no. So a long time playing college pros. Yes. And then you wonder, based on you're a family man as a rookie, being told you're going to be drafted in the third round and not after visiting. And, I had the type 1 diabetes mark on me as well. So you never know exactly what, but you always wonder, did this or that because of my faith? And you just keep going. I wasn't ever going to stop. I was, I don't know if defensive is the word, but I've always fought and wanted to stand up for the faith, whether it was being targeted or whether it was with the brothers that I loved to death, who were maybe a little rougher around the edges. I would love to start discussion with those men, and just it often led to some conversation. Sometimes it led to a little more heatedness. I had one of my brothers and maybe a few brothers in headlocks over the years. Maybe not the best way of evangelization, but I hope they're listening, because it was out of love. Again, they know how to poke the bear, and they would. And so it was good. Sorry, my hamstring was cramping. I got to work out this morning. Today was the first day coaching, and I'm realizing I'm a little dehydrated as I'm cramping laughing here. Sorry, get me back on track, Lisa.
I just, about being sort of that, you were an outspoken Christian athlete,
Yes,
and, did you ever, you sound like people poke the bear and you put
they
them in a
poke the bear.
headlock,
Yes, yes,
and I think that happens to people, and
it does.
and we
It does.
just,
And you can go in. So, I had at Utah State and at and in the pros, you have Christians that are too nice on the field.
oh,
And I wasn't that. And so when I heard a coach or someone get on someone like that, I agree, to be honest with you, because I'm more, in as Catholics, we have the Maccabees in our Bible. Maccabean revolt. You have David's and who conquered the Goliath, and definitely, hey, I can be a mighty warrior on the field and still be a Christian, because it is acting with the talents and the gifts that the Lord's given me to go all out. And so that's how I lived it, is an opportunity to glorify God. And the more I hurt someone and the more I put them on their back, the more I was glorifying him, even though that might be a brother Christian on the other side. Hey, I'm doing my job. And that was my mentality. So I didn't catch grief like that, because most of the time I was all in motor mentality like that. Where I have seen guys get a hard time is being able to flip that switch, and that is a switch that needs to flip when it's on the field. Doesn't mean you can't still love him. I love all my competitors.
and I wonder if that's a misconception. A Christian athlete, no, I'm still going to I'm taking you down. But even a Christian businessman, like, I have goals. There's still a net profit that,
Yes.
I'm not going to steal, cheat. I'm going to do this right, but I'm still going to beat you. I'm, or it's competitiveness. So
Yeah,
I
with
appreciate you sharing
integrity.
that.
Yeah, one of my, I'm thinking of the wrong guy now, but one of my favorite leaders just talks about, again, it's the principle centeredness, right? Is that Christ centeredness is the principle, and the principle is, I got to be all in, and then you look at all the different principles and integrity, and this is the club that's paying my check today. This is where the Lord has put me. They're going down.
That's great. So I have two final questions I ask all our guests. So I will go into it. LeaderImpact is dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. So as you continue to move through your own journey, and it's an amazing one to listen to, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Yes. It always evolves to some extent, but the core is relentlessness. And to me, that is what led into iron will. Not that I'm trying to coin a phrase, but it is, you use the word overachievement. Is again, it's not that, it's running so as to win. And I want, when people look, is he ran and never stopped, and it didn't matter what obstacle came, he ran. And that become iron-willed is his will, not my will. And with that means, there's Cain and Abel, both gave. What's the difference? Got to give my first, my best, my absolute everything that the Lord has given me. I got to return to him, because it is he who gave it to me. And so that's, we get to 10% there, but that's 10% of my time, talent, and treasure. Not just that secondary 10% or whatever's left is the best, the absolute first. And I have not mastered that by any means, Lisa. That is what I want to be known for. That's what I want to live my life doing.
Good. All right. And the final question I ask everyone is, what brings you the greatest joy?
So many things. Serving the Lord. I mean, my wife, my kids bring me the greatest joy. And what's, as dads, and I'm sure moms too, you reflect at the end of the day is, why am I so grumpy? Why am I this or that and all that kind of stuff? But man, they are my greatest joy. My other greatest joy is, I get people that still can't believe you going to prison or all these kind of things. It's not the prison. It's the encounter with Jesus Christ. The works of mercy, Matthew 25 is, unless you fed the hungry and clothed the naked, gave drink to the thirsty, welcomed the stranger, visited me while I was sick or in prison, I don't know you. But he says it in a way that, when you did this for the least of mine, you did it for me. And that's what we haven't quite all figured out as humanity yet, is it's not that I'm serving them. When I'm encountering each of those is when my cup is the most filled, because it truly is an encounter with Jesus Christ in a way that cannot be duplicated by words or prayer or actions. All those things are, Bible study, all those things are good too. But there's something so unique about that encounter with someone who is suffering, and you are part of relieving it, but at the same time, you're scoring all the more. And you go and you just filled. So, yeah, I'm from Wyoming, as you know. I don't know if you ever got to spend in the Bighorns. I'm going there again this summer, much like Banff. I can get lost in the mountains, and I feel it there too. So there are so many places that you have these encounters. But it is, as much as we wish we could avoid the suffering, it is in all that. It's in the struggles of life that we have all these experiences, and starting with 1, 2 kids. We had a girl and then a boy, and even my grandma saying, well, you're all set now, and we never had a plan. It's just, holy cow, our capacity to love expands with each child. Does that mean there's no suffering? No, but it's a greater blessing, and it fills our cup. So
yeah. So you had your grandma was like, yeah, you are the perfect family, and then you continue to have 8 more.
Yeah.
What are the ages? I think your youngest is 1.
She's turned 1, yes, and my oldest is 17.
Wow.
Finishing her junior year here, so we're on 2 ends of the spectrum, but still all at home. So it'll start to get really weird here in about a year and a half, when that oldest, hopefully, again, I'm hoping they all stay home forever, but I'm guessing that's probably not a reality. So it's going to start changing really fast here, and it's changed already this last year with her driving, and wow, what a difference that makes in life, and some freedoms that come with that. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Mine and my last one, 6 months will be off to school away.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm empty nester, but you know what? They're so happy that it's okay. Like my job was, God gifted me these beautiful children. I am to raise them.
Yep.
And, and it's tough.
And I can't wait for that too. It does make you nervous, but that is awesome. I can't imagine ever getting there, Lisa, but someday.
You just keep having kids. Well done. Well, I want to thank you, John, for spending the last 45 minutes with us. I have been looking forward to this. I've been doing lots of videos and reading about you, and I'm just thankful that you shared the time with us. I appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, what an honor, what a privilege. Thank you so much. I love what you guys are doing, and it is about impact. So I thank you for what you guys are doing, because if it's not making an impact, why are we doing it?
Right.
And,
Well, if anyone wants to engage with you or, follow up, where can they find you? What would be the best way?
That's a great question. So many different things now, ministry and all this stuff. Become iron-willed at gmail.com is great. I can be found easily on Facebook or Instagram, and people can message me there anytime, and I will get back to you. Other than inside the diocese, I do have a diocesan website for the prison ministry, but that's probably the best one, or chickfamilyproactivehealth.com.
All right. Well, I'm sure people will rewind that, listen, or that's old school, rewind.
Yes.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you again, John. It has been a privilege to speak with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa. God bless you.
All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you are not yet part of Leader Impact and would like to find out more and grow your leadership, find our podcast page on our website at leaderimpact.ca and check out our free leadership assessment. You will also find our webpage, Chapter 1. You'll also find on our webpage, Chapter 1 of Braden Douglas's book, Becoming a Leader of Impact. It is an amazing leadership book. You can also check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca. Or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or a review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.